WITI Africa, where we have conversations with change makers who are impacting their communities, both locally in Africa and also globally in their different communities of influence. My name is Winifred Ereyi. I am the WITI Africa Network Lead. I'm also the CEO of EY Communications, a leadership development consulting firm. Joining me today is Adaeze Iloeje Udeogalanya. So I spent so much time learning how to pronounce the name. Adaeze, did I do well? Iloeje Udeogalanya.
Yeah, you did amazing.
You pronounce it, tell me.
Adaeze Iloeje Udeogalanya.
Udeogalanya. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too far off. Although we are both from the same part of Africa, because we are from different tribes, that is my excuse for not being able to pronounce it. But it's amazing how you lose the ability to pronounce names the longer you stay away from the African continent. So Adaeze Iloeje Udeogalanya is a TEDx speaker and founder of African Women in STEM, an organization empowering African women globally in STEM fields. With 2 decades of experience in engineering and energy, she has managed projects worth over $500 million. As a catalyst for change, Adaeze speaks powerfully about leadership, cultural inclusion, and community building. Her TEDx talk challenges professionals to embrace their cultural identity as a key to innovation. Through her leadership development program, she helps women in STEM design careers aligned with their values to maximize their potential. Adaeze has been featured in the San Francisco Examiner as one of 10 leading voices shaping the future of their industry. She was named Black Leaders Worldwide Top Leader of 2024 and is a 2025 Women Changing the World Global Awards winner. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
I am excited to be here. This is gonna be
Yeah.
fun.
So I have there are quite a few similarities that we have. We're
Mm.
both into, just being an authentic human being, just embracing your authenticity and showing up in wherever you show up, different spaces and places as your full self. So I really like that from listening to your TEDx talk. And anybody listening today, please go and listen to Adeze's TEDx talk. Also that we're both Nigerians and we're both in the STEM field and we're both into leadership development. So lots of similarities. So I expect this
Mhm.
conversation to be very insightful. I won't be answering, I will be asking you. So please put pen to paper. The people who are listening, both who are listening here and who will listen afterward, put pen to paper so that you can take down notes. But I tell you that information does not bring transformation, action does. So the notes that you're going to take today is very important that you do it. You don't just hear it, but you do it so that you can be transformed. Because our focus here in WITI Africa is not just to showcase the amazing work people are doing, but also to lead you on your own transformational journey. So over to you, Adaeze. So tell me, I read your LinkedIn and you talked about the fact that you wanted to be an astronaut, then you wanted to be, you want so many different careers. You wanted to be an astronaut, and then you wanted to get into plants and talk about plants. So can you just tell me about your journey into STEM? You said it wasn't about tinkering with gadgets, but about imagining possibilities. So how did imagination and curiosity guide your STEM career choices?
Well, thank you for reading my LinkedIn bio. Sometimes I wonder if people read that. But I mean, like, yeah, when I was 6 years old, they used to have this incredible cartoon on TV, which if I show it to my kids right now, they'd be like, "What is this?" But then it seemed like it was cool and cute. So they had all these space aliens and cartoon individuals going to space, and the whole idea that you could just appear and disappear and zoom through space was very exciting to me. So I told my dad I wanted to be an astronaut. He was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Why do you want to be an astronaut?" I was like, "I don't know. Astronauts, I don't know what I feel." So he's like, "Go find out why you want to be an astronaut and come back and we'll talk about it." And then a few years later, I decided, I don't know where I learned that you have to have 20/20 vision to be an astronaut. And, I wear glasses. So I was like, okay, fine, that dreams goes to the gutter or whatever. So I watch Discovery Channel, and I used to love seeing there's this man that actually went around the world discovering exotic plants. And I was like, okay, fine, I want to be that man. And my dad was like, oh, that's a botanist. I was like, ew, that sounds very uninteresting. But the whole idea of STEM for me was just that I could just be in places doing things that were not normal. Normal was going to school every day, doing your homework and things like that. But abnormal was flying into space, discovering other worlds, going around the world, finding out all these plants that nobody knew about and talking about them. And then my dad is a mechanical engineer, so I guess he had something to do with it as well. But the whole idea that you can just dream up something and try to find out more about it and make it happen. The whole idea that you could figure out a different way. There was always a different way to do things. I love doing chores. I also hated doing chores. So STEM was a way for me to create an easy way out. You know, Funny enough, I wanted to study mechanical engineering because I wanted to build a robot that would do cooking for me. Okay, so I just write a program and it would just do everything. So I just love STEM. And the more I do what I do right now is just realizing that people just wake up and think something in their head and they actually make that thing come to life. So that to me is incredible. That's why I love what I do.
Excellent. So I really like the fact that you've taken STEM away from the world of mathematics, where you have to be good at maths or be good at physics or be good at science in order to pursue STEM, which is typically what people hear in the classroom. And so they remove themselves and say, because I'm not good in this subject, I can't pursue a STEM career. So you've taken it away from that, the power from that narrative, and said, really, STEM is really about just being curious about the world that you live in and wanting to come up with solutions. And so that is really what sparked your curiosity to actually pursue a STEM career. Can you tell me? I know you said your father is a mechanical engineer. Can you tell the audience what type of, there's so many engineers, what type
Mhm.
of engineering did you pursue?
Mechanical engineering. And before you think it's because of my dad, it's not because of my dad. Or maybe it is, but one thing he did when I was growing up was involve me in the work that he was doing. So he worked at this uh, well, energy center. So
Mhm.
what they did, there was an energy commission of Nigeria. One thing they did was to try to provide power to rural areas. And then when they go to those areas, they find whatever natural resource they have in abundance and use that to provide power. So for example, in the north, where it's really hot, they do solar, they use solar energy to provide power. In areas where they had a river running, they put a little dam and things like that. So he took me around on his trips, and I remember going to somewhere in the West. I don't know whether it was Ogun State or somewhere. Um, and there was this biogas plant that they had. And I think for the first time, what he was doing made a lot of sense to me because he seemed uh, reachable in a sense, because we all have household waste. And basically that biogas plant was just made up of household waste from everybody in the community. They threw it in there and they produced gas, and that was the electricity. So I was like, this is amazing. Because I had this I won't say affinity, but I always lean towards making the lives of women better for a lot of reasons. I read a lot when I was young. Even in Western narratives, there was always this thing about women having the shorter end of the stick. And then culturally, it was also the same. So I figured this would be a great way to make lives easier for women. Because again, I thought about not liking cooking. So so that you don't have to spend hours and hours in the kitchen using firewood to try to cook. You can actually get biogas, get electricity in your home and also use that as a gas to cook, which is cleaner and better and faster. So I decided I wanted to study this thing that I can create these renewable energies to make these women's lives better. when my mom told me that, it sounds more like what your dad was doing. I almost did not do it, but I think I cared more about the women than I did about not doing exactly what my dad did. So,
Yeah, I really believe that role models are essential to help girls, especially,
mm,
make a decision to pursue a STEM career. Role models like yourself, like myself, parents are really important because at a young age, you have so many options. So, parents can serve as a mentor to help guide you, to help connect what you are really good at in terms of subjects and what you want to know more about. Again, in terms of subjects, but you want to connect it with a career that adds value to the world and a career where you will be compensated. So, as a young child, you do not have that experience. And so that's where the parent comes in, just looking at your academic record and just from dialogue, asking you a lot of questions. They are able to shape you and, to guide your thought process and open doors so that you can actually pursue a career that will leverage your interests. So there's nothing wrong with saying your father actually influenced you. My father influenced me to pursue
mm,
engineering, but he was a lawyer. And so he didn't know anything about engineering, but he watched it on television when he went to England and he said the world his children would live in would be all about computers and robots. So it was 1983. He came back home
mm,
with an Amstrad computer and an Atari robot, and he got all his 8 children. He said, "You've got to learn this computer and how this computer works with this robot, and then you have to learn how to program." So he had basic computer programming language. He had the books, and that guided me, because like you, I was a reader, voracious reader, and I asked a lot of questions, and he was tired of answering questions. So he said, "This will occupy you, so you don't ask many more questions." So parents and role models have a vital role
mm.
in guiding the young mind, and shaping the mind and opening up doors. I say curiosity is the birthplace of growth. Always asking why, not this is how it was done, but how can it be done a different way? So being curious, staying open, is definitely at the core of a STEM career. So thank you for sharing how curiosity got you into the world of engineering and the role your father played. And Father's Day is coming up, so hooray to all the fathers who are influencing, especially the girl child's life. I'm really so thankful. A lot of people think it's only females that have a seat at the table to influence the girl child. That's not correct. The fathers do have a place to play. So let's move along and begin to look at your current career as a leadership and strategy coach. In your bio, you say that you help women align their expertise with leadership. What are the biggest mindset shifts you see women in STEM making in order for them to lead confidently?
I love this question. In the work that I do, like with African Men in STEM, one thing I noticed is there's always this challenge when it comes to transitioning from technical to leadership roles. And I guess with the technical part, maybe most of their careers or most of our careers, we've been trying or working to prove ourselves. So we're used to like showing we're technically proficient. And to be in STEM, you have to be, because you might be the only woman in the sea of like 1,000 men. So that comes easier to us in a sense. And in general, people in STEM are more like, very technical, very focused on solutions and, being pragmatic and things. When it comes to leadership, it's slightly different. One thing that I notice with most of the women is when they get to that point, they pause for two reasons. One, it's not even easy for you to just transition. You're one woman in a sea of so many. They're probably going to more likely promote several men ahead of you. So that becomes one factor. And then even when you feel that you need to be there, one thing they always say is, "Oh, I need to be more to be ready." So it's either I need to get more degrees, I need to get more certifications, I need to have more experience, I need to do more of this. I've had people go and get a whole master's and PhD because they felt they needed that to get into a position that were probably offered for some of them, before they did, they were like, but they felt that they couldn't do it. And then you said something about comparison, my friend. Comparison, I feel, they say the thief of joy, I feel is the thief of opportunities. Because another thing that happens is that because they feel they need more, they look at some of their male colleagues and think they have all these things. But we know from research that men will show up and say they're ready when they have 60% of the requirements and they'll own it. So that confidence to them translates to there has to be something more those other people have that I don't have. And that's one thing that really holds them back.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you. And I tell you that this is one of the powers of the WITI network. Just being able to come together and really be vulnerable and be, be your authentic self and really share the sort of challenges you are facing in the workplace, because these are small communities that we have, across the globe. And but also listen to others who have had similar, experiences, so that you don't feel like you're alone. Because imposter syndrome is what you described, that a lot of females suffer from imposter syndrome. And I really believe it's the way the brain is designed for the female, because the female is her brain is designed so that she's looking after out for children. And so with the children, she always has to feel like she needs to do more for the children to be their best self. And she brings that same mindset to the workplace. And we know that that is a career killer, because work expects you to show up confidently and to put your best foot forward. So one of the mindset shifts is, like you said, is for them to feel like they're enough. You are enough. You know enough. And anything else you need to know, you can learn it on the job. So really, really encouraging them to just own their superpower. But to be able to identify what that superpower is. So that is one of the biggest mindset shifts that you've seen that women have to make, that they know that they are enough, and anything else they can learn on the job. So tell me, what about self leadership? Where does self leadership come in this whole equation?
I'm going to go back to something I would say one of my coaches told me 2 years ago. Because I was preparing for my TEDx talk. It's a whole process. I took my time and I was applying. Of course, you have all these applications. Either you don't hear back or you hear back and they're like, oh, you're not the right person and so on and so forth. But I had learned something previously from a different mentor about just playing with things. So when I don't get the response I want, I'm like, okay, at least they responded, because they didn't have to. These are volunteer organizations. They have lives. If they don't pick me, they don't have to respond. And if they offer to give feedback, I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. That's a plus. But another thing I focused on was the fact that I could actually, with every uh, feedback I got, I improved my application. So she was like, oh my God, the way you approach this, because she coaches other people that try to, get in engagements or TEDx and things like that. And rejection is not fun. It's like you're just very different. And this is like a great show of self-leadership. And I was like, oh, I thought it was just me. Yeah, like, okay, I'm not gonna let this get to me. But the thing about self-leadership is that for you to be very successful in leading yourself, you have to be fully self-aware. So what that means is that you have to know yourself really well. You have to know what your vision is, what your goals are, where you're headed. And once you have that in place, it'll be very easy for you to direct yourself through your career, through life, through whatever it is you're going through, regardless of what's happening around you. Having clarity gives you so much confidence. Because if I didn't have clarity, if I wasn't sure where I was going, if I got a letter that said you're not the right fit, it could just derail me and I'll spend like the next, I don't know how long, trying to feel sorry for myself. So that's why self-leadership is very important. And also in the workplace, the reason why it's important is the workplace is not easy for anyone. You need to be able to lead yourself regardless. You need to be able to want to be in the workplace where you are. You need to be able to not seek validation all the time to be able to move forward. So it's very, very critical. But more importantly is that you have to kind of go back to knowing yourself, being fully aware of the reason why you do what you do and where you want to go.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you for sharing. From a leadership perspective, I always say that there are three types of leadership. There's leading self, then there's leading with others, and then there's leading others. For you to lead with others or to lead others, you have to be able to lead yourself. It's very easy to tell people what to do, but for you to do it yourself, it can be challenging because inside, it, you being able to see yourself as you really are, not as you think you are, can be really challenging to get. So being open to feedback, they call it 360 feedback, being open, hearing what other people, how they experience you, and then sitting back to say, well, do you recognize any of what they've said? Do you agree with it? And coming up with an action plan. I mean, that is so vitally important because we are always evolving as human beings. I always say the Winifred of 5 years ago, even from a cellular level, she's different from the Winifred today. So we have to continually stay in that place of self-awareness. We have to continually stay in that place of being very reflecting on how we are showing up in different spaces and places, and being able to read others, being aware of your own emotions, aware of the emotions of other people, and then really taking notes, and so that you can make adjustments, so that you can lead yourself. Because if you can't lead yourself, you cannot lead others. I really like the fact that you talked about clarity and confidence. I really want you to dive a bit deeper into that because I know we talked about imposter syndrome. Confidence, clarity, knowing where you are going, knowing where you are and where you want to go, and confidence. These are two areas that dog a lot of females. So tell me, how can females build confidence in themselves? Because you talked about not seeking validation from other people, but being able to validate yourself. So can you unpack that a bit? How can females develop confidence? I have a daughter who is a software engineer in a company in New York, and we're always having these calls. And it comes back to confidence. It comes back to being able to articulate your thoughts in words during meetings when you are always the only female. It comes back to writing a code and somebody wanting to change the code and saying, no, this code is a science and an art. This is the way I want to write the code. If there are some errors in my code, show me the errors, but don't change the whole thing. So being confident is vitally important for you to move from technical to leadership, for you to break the glass step, break the glass ceiling, and navigate your career. How can females build confidence, self-confidence?
You know, I'm going to say clarity comes first. And the reason I have to mention that because we'd like to skip that step. We think we're clear on what we want to do, but one reason why it's obvious that we're not clear is, for example, you're navigating your career and you're trying to get to the next level and you're not sure, and they keep doing what you think, the powers that be want you to do, and before you know, your career is all over the place in a sense. So it goes back to the whole thing about self-awareness. So I will encourage everyone, just take some time. No matter what stage you are, because your point is saying we're always evolving. So you might know what you wanted to do, I know 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But the thing that changes with life, with changes in life, with everything else that happens, that is going to change. So it's a practice that you always have to come back to. And then once you're clear on what you want to do, that will help you move to the next step of having confidence. I used to think, well, I guess I was always confident when I was younger, just because I had a supportive family that never told me I couldn't. So, like, who are you? Part of that is still in me. But then there's all the other part about that. Yeah, I don't really, maybe some people are born with confidence, I don't know. But I don't really think people are born with confidence, like 100% of the confidence that they have. But I do know that action brings confidence. So if you're clear on what you want to do, you know where you're going, you know where your vision is, you will get more confident the more you take actions towards where you want to go. So for example, like your daughter, she's a computer engineer working in this industry, coding, this is her path. The more she does her work, focused on where she's headed, or she thinks she's headed at that phase in her career, in her life, the more confident she's going to become. So I'll always say, yes, want to have confidence, but you have to take the actions to build that confidence. And I'll bring about something that happened to me recently. I just, started working African Minister full-time as a business last year. And running a community and running a business are two completely different things. Because now I have to do so many other things like marketing, which I absolutely hated. Sales, like what in the world is that? You know what I mean? And I was so overwhelmed. But now I'm not hate them. I'm not afraid of them. I actually get excited when I figure out the reason why the last thing I did didn't work. But what changed between last year and today is the fact that I continuously took action. And while taking action, I got advice from mentors and people that knew better than me. I tried to educate myself and learn. And when I made mistakes, it wasn't the end of the world. It was just an opportunity to either do better or drop something. So I'll just say, just be clear and take action. And the more you do things, the more confident you'll become. And you just keep building on that.
So I really like that. Thank you so much again for sharing. So just to recap, have a bias to action. That's what Adaeze has told us. That for you to develop confidence, you can't just be thinking about it. You have to take action. I always say take action and celebrate your small wins. Just the way the brain is, we have, I call it those chemicals for happiness: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. These are chemicals of your brain that need to be at the right level for you to be happy. And for dopamine to be at its right level, you've got to, it needs some feedback that you've done something, that you have won at, you've been successful at. So celebrate small wins. Just like she said, take action. And when you take that action, and if it was a successful one, celebrate it. I say, every girl needs a sister tribe. People need a support network. You need that feedback from your support network that you are the best thing since sliced bread. I am telling you, that is vitally important. Even if you are the best thing since sliced bread with cooking, that translates to other things. Somebody celebrating how awesome you are with cooking makes you feel confident about something else. So it doesn't matter what vertical, what business we are talking about. Take action, celebrate it. On Wednesdays, yesterday, I call it Winning Wednesday. I invite my community to celebrate something that they have done successfully. These things are not, they're not, there is something very important. You cannot be confident without some successes. And you cannot have successes if you don't take action. So celebrate yourself. Even though the world is not celebrating, you celebrate yourself. Like Adaeze has told us, you have to do internal validation. And part of internal validation is making affirmations about who you are, especially if you are early on in your career and everybody else has so much experience and you're the newbie. And you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing as well as other people. You said comparison is the thief of joy. But the thing that you are doing well at, celebrate it. Even if it is just showing up, there and not being intimidated. Celebrate it. You must take action, but you must celebrate it. You must celebrate your little wins. Another thing that Adaeze has brought to our attention is be open to feedback. She said she got feedback and she was open to continuous learning. She got feedback from other people. She didn't take it personal that, oh, they are criticizing me. No, she said, wow, this is an opportunity to learn how to do it a different way. So, in order to be confident, you've got to be resilient. You must be open to feedback. Human beings, typically, the way the brain is, they do not like to be criticized. Like I talked about the dose chemicals in your brain, your happiness chemicals. dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. They are not open. They don't. If you criticize, if somebody criticizes you, some of those chemicals in your brain will go in the wrong way. So people don't like to be criticized, but you are in charge. You can say, this is not a criticism. Your self-talk is important. When information comes to you, you are the one responsible for interpreting it. So you can look at it as a criticism, or you can look at it as this is feedback. This is feedback on how I can do something different. And that's what Adaeze told us she did for her TED talk. And that's how she finally gave this awesome talk. It is vitally important that we are open to feedback. It is vitally important. And she talked about it, take ownership. Take ownership for your learning. So continuous learning. So confidence, like she said, doesn't just happen because you are like, I'm going to be confident. You have got to put in the effort. She said that some people may be born confident. She doesn't know about that. But people put in effort. So when you see somebody who is confident, oh girl, that person has put in work. That person has done some psychological work. So don't go and be having like again she said, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't go and be having somebody. Go and put in the work that person has put in, and you will find that your confidence is a product of your brain health. It's a product of how you are managing your thoughts, how you are managing your emotions, how you are responding to the world around you, how you are able to interpret the emotions of other people. Have you noticed that there are some people who are so bright? Oh, they are brilliant when you give them technical stuff. But when you put them in front of human beings to navigate the world with other human beings, they are also awkward. So you see, everybody has their strength zone. So just do you and lean on your strengths, move to your strength zone. If you are always comparing your weakness with somebody's strength, you're never going to be confident. She talked about cooking, and my son has put me on a cooking challenge since January because I hate to cook. And since January, he has been like, Mommy, we're going to learn how to cook. And he works for Google. And so I have to send recipes to him and stay in that kitchen. But can you imagine it's May and I've been cooking and I'm saying to enjoy it because so many times I wanted to drop off. But I created the support network to help me stay focused. So so it takes effort to build your confidence. So I'm so happy you talked about that because that really ties in to imposter syndrome. When you are aware, you have clarity, and you are aware that areas of you need to work on, you've got to do the work. You have to take ownership of it and say, if I have to work on this, my confidence in these different spaces and places, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to do the work. So we've given you some points, for you to use to build your confidence. It is not exhaustive, but it's something for you to start with. So moving right along, Adaeze, in your TEDx talk, you talked about cultural identity. I really, really love the whole concept of culture there because I'm very into culture. If you go to my social media, you see me traveling to Pakistan, traveling to Bali, traveling to different places because I really believe that in order to be able to communicate effectively with other people, you've got to respect their culture. And no other way to understand people's culture than to go to where they live, and just immerse yourself. So you talked about cultural identity. Can you explain? You said cultural identity is a competitive advantage. What is cultural identity?
It's basically how you end up showing up in the world, and that comes from the influences you had in the environment that you grew up in. So your social environment, the way things are done, the way language is used, the way things that happen in life are interpreted, they all come together to actually form your cultural identity. So, say for example, I grew up in Nigeria and then I have that culture. I move here, I absorb some other culture. So my cultural identity, to your point, what you said earlier, is very different than if I had been in Nigeria my whole entire life. So it's a function of your environment and the people around you Some of them are stronger than others, depending on where you're from and how you identify. But the thing I love about the cultural identity is that it's one thing that actually makes you absolutely unique. Because you can have siblings, you grew up in the exact same family, you're from the exact same place, you practice the exact same cultures and things like that, but how you interpret it might be slightly different. How you apply it to life will be slightly different. But what usually happens is that when we move to a place where everybody is not like us in general, culturally, the easiest thing to do is to shrink from that and not showcase that part of you at all. Because what I've found in my experience living and working in the United States is that different people sometimes are afraid of anything that is different. They're so afraid of it, they don't even want to understand it. And we now feel that it's up to us to just remove that thing that they're afraid of because they don't even want to take the time to understand it. But what happens is it's part of you. And when you do something like that, you're denying yourself there's a whole part of you that you can actually apply to the work that you do. Like I see people, I have an example, it happened to me. Like at work, we excel, but whatever excellence that you're achieving at work is nothing compared to what you could have if you showed up as your whole self. So I see people at work, yeah, they're getting the promotions or whatever, but outside of work, you see them exceptional leaders, very influential. They have like three nonprofits, they're changing the world, they're doing all these things. But at work, you just do the work. They don't have that same impact or influence in the workplace as they do outside of work. So this is just to show you how not expressing yourself fully and letting your cultural identity come true can actually limit what you do. And to a point when you talked about traveling the world and see how people do things, with cultural identity, what it allows you to do is to be able to look at a problem, because at work, we're always solving problems. You can look at a problem in a totally different way from everybody else. Right? One beautiful example I want to give, I have braids. I remember a couple of years ago, I was supposed to do a scan, and they left me this voicemail about no braids, no wigs, no extensions, no this. And I'm like, what? What in the world? Luckily for me, my scan was like 6 weeks away. And by then I would have enough time to take out my braids. But I was thinking, if my scan was next week and I just got my braids today, I mean, if you're African, you understand what it takes to go, sit for hours, get all those braids, spend all this money, and then you have to take it out because you need to do a scan. And then finding out later, there's this young woman, what's her name again? Angela, I don't know what she's at Temple University that actually figured out a way to help scientists and radiologists interpret, because they see these braids and they interpret it to be some kind of some abnormality. That's a huge thing. And she would not have been able to do that if not because of her cultural identity. So I just wanted to realize that you have something that makes you entirely unique that you bring to the workplace, wherever you are, that can allow you solve problems, innovate in a way that's totally different from everybody else. So just allow that to come through. No matter how difficult it is, just allow that to come through so that you can find solutions like Angela did, and like so many other people do when they allow themselves to come through, because you can have a totally different perspective on whatever problem it is.
In your TEDx talk, you talk about meeting a colleague and the colleague going on and on about your different hairstyles. That shows you are listening to it, your different hairstyles. So, and a lot of people, just my own personal experience, they struggle to reconcile their cultural identity with corporate expectations. So, what sort of practical steps can you give, so that people can show up authentically and thrive in the corporate world?
Mhm. Um, it's kind of interesting because, again, coming from Nigeria, you change your hairstyles every week, all right? And the only comment you get is like, "Oh my God, your hair's so beautiful. Like, where did you do it?" and so on. Well, I moved here and, I did the same thing. And all of a sudden, it was like, you're changing your hairstyle every week. It wasn't, you're changing your hairstyle every week is a good thing. Is you're changing your hairstyle every week, like, you know, really? That kind of thing. So I actually had a period of time where I wore the same hairstyle forever. because I did not want people for me to ask me, "Oh, your hair is long, it's short, it's a different color, is this and is that," or have all these I don't know, interpretations of what it means for me to have the time to change my hair every single time. So I'm not going to say I handled it very well, in the early stages of my career. However, you said something about having a 360-degree feedback or review. So I was working with this coach, and she asked me to go do a 360 review, and I was supposed to do it with family and with friends. And one of the family members, I did it with my brother. So one thing he said is like, "I don't know who you are anymore. Like it feels like your height, like you don't exist. Like all of you is hidden somewhere, and what is left is just this thing that I can't explain." I mean, this are not his exact words, but that's in a nutshell what it was. And interestingly enough, I've been feeling something for a very long time, but I didn't know how to describe it. But I knew that I had to show up as a different person in the workplace and a different person outside of the workplace. And after a while, it becomes troublesome, because if you think about it, if you're all scientists here, in physics, you talk about expansion and contraction. Usually when you have a pothole in the road is because during the winter it contracts, in the summer it expands, it contracts and expands, before you know it, there's a crack. So this whole thing of expanding and contracting over time, it has an impact. So what I did at the time, what I realized is, thank you for that 360 review, was like, oh my goodness, this is not healthy, because it was impacting me physically, mentally, all the things. So like it or not, it will impact you. And I read this book about feelings buried alive, never die, they come out some way. So what I decided was, first of all, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's not healthy. It's not me. I have so much to offer, and I'm not doing that because I'm trying to fit into this thing that everybody thinks is the main thing that it has to be. So for me, I decided, first of all, I'm not going to do this anymore. What does that look like? For example, I was a mom, and I had worked in workplaces where they had problems with me being a mom. So I never had pictures of my kids in the work. It doesn't matter. I knew I was a mom. They're still going to do what they're going to do, but I just needed to do that to kind of protect myself in a sense. So little things like things I used to do to try to protect myself and make it easier on them, I kind of stopped because they're harmless. I mean, everybody had pictures of their kids, but they were all men. I was the only woman with a picture of the kid, and they felt we didn't have anything in common because we didn't have to be there for our kids all the time. Um, I don't know what I did to my hair anymore. I have to worry about if it was short today and long tomorrow. These are very easy things. And the biggest change I made was just to be clear about what I was focusing on when I was looking for a place to work. Because I grew up in a family where, excellence was a thing. And then just our society as Nigerians, and Africans, we always look for the best. So when I was looking for work, for places to work before, I would focus a lot on how great is the place, how well are they known, what do they pay, what kind of projects do they do, am I going to be at the cutting edge of whatever, you know? But at this point, I realized that even if all of those things existed, if I could not show up 100% as myself, like bring everything I can to the table to help this company move forward, it didn't matter anyway. Um, I'll just spend waste time that I could have spent doing something better somewhere else. So I now, instead of focusing on all those other things, pay and stuff, I talked about it in my TEDx talk. I was more interested in, was it a cultural fit? Companies talk about, are you a cultural fit? We also should be evaluating companies to see if they're cultural fit, if their values align with ours. Because if there's a clash in value, I promise you, the company is big, you're small, you're going to be crushed. So for me, that was apart from doing the little things, that was the biggest shift for me, because I wanted to make sure that I give myself the best opportunity to succeed. So what that meant was making sure that I was in an environment where I could have the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do and succeed and help the company do better.
Yeah, I really, really like that. Thank you so much. I think it goes back to the earlier conversation we had when you talked about self-awareness. So you've got to know what your values are. You have to know what your mission statement. You have to have your own mission statement and your own vision statement, and know what your values, and use that as your guide, your moral compass to say, you know, I want to make sure there's alignment between myself and you, in both in terms of mission, but vision, and also in terms of values. Because once there's a misalignment, the chances that you're going to be a happy camper going to work every day is going to be very low. So I really like that. And that also ties into confidence. Because when you do all of this work, pre-work, you know, and you've gotten into the right environment, like a seed, you know, where you can be watered and blossom, your confidence will come, you know, because you know that you can show up as your full self. There's so much emphasis these days, especially with a lot of Brené Brown's work, about leading with empathy. You know, so a lot of leaders, they are having to go and learn how to connect with people. Culture is now a big thing, company culture. How do I connect with my employees? So people are learning and going to be trained so that they're not connecting both only on an intellectual level, they're also connecting on an emotional level and trying to really understand where people are coming from and not just looking at them just like robots based on the tasks they are doing. So we have hope for the workplace that that culture is going to be so big so that not only are we assessing them, they are assessing themselves to look at what sort of culture they have, you know, what sort of, is it an inclusive culture? One of the things that I do is that I use every question as an opportunity to educate people. You know, when if I show up in a Nigerian outfit, I use that as an opportunity to tell them about Nigeria as a country and tell people Africa and Nigeria. Africa is a continent, Nigeria is a country. A lot of people don't know that. So I don't assume that they know, you know, because of the war in Pakistan, I wore Pakistani outfits. I have outfits from different countries. And just because I love to know about different cultures, I do read about cultures. So when I wear it, I use that as a conversation, you know, to educate people because people fear what they do not know. So lack of knowledge is what is at the root. Fear is really what is at the root of them not accepting you. So once you begin to educate them, once you begin to share your food, even with them, you find that people, you know, people are not so against you, you know. And so education is so important. Having conversation, having dialogue, explaining about the hair. When I braid my hair, and people are, your hair grow at night. I'm like, really? Oh my goodness. We need somebody that can provide the right tonic so that people's hair can grow overnight. I have braids. So you've never heard about braids? Let me tell you what braids look like. And the next time I see them, I actually bring braids. I say, this is braids and it's plaited into the hair. So really using yourself as a resource to educate people so that and I need to I also want to be educated, you know, and I want people to tell me about their culture. So using that as an opportunity to educate people helps people reconcile their cultural identity with corporate expectations. One of the things for sure is that when your accent is different, it's very difficult for people of another accent to understand you. So when you know that, you cannot slow down when you are speaking. And you don't use slangs. I mean, when I'm speaking to a Niger, I can use Nigerian slang. But when you have to be culturally sensitive for goodness sake. You know, my mom would say that, you know, when a chicken gets to a new environment, it doesn't put the two feet down. It actually observes the environment. So we can't just go to an environment and just expect that you can fit in. You have to do the pre-work of educating people, slowing down, pronouncing your words a bit more carefully. Like, you know, look at we are both Nigerian. I do you know how much time I spent trying to pronounce your last name? Even before this talk, I pronounced and I still got it wrong. So be patient, be tolerant of other people. Don't have all these assumptions in your head that they don't like me and all of this. Sometimes they don't really understand you. You know, like when I'm speaking, sometimes I'm like, you know, Bullet is going to be speaking so fast. So make sure you are recording this so that you can listen to me because I have such short time. So please do not have all these assumptions in your head about people. Sometimes you have to also change in order for you to be able to reconcile cultural identity and corporate expectations? You know, I have so many questions for Adaeze, but I've run out of time. And I want to invite the audience to ask her questions. And I'll ask her one last question before I invite other people to answer. I typically have my best friend. She actually is a co-host on this. So she's the one that's always like, Winifred, time up, or Winifred, you are talking too long. So she's not here because she's at the Toastmasters competition. So that's why I have to invite you again, Adaeze, to finish my other questions. But Adaeze, I want to ask you a question. You know, there are so many Africans who have amazing skills. You know, both in Africa and here, especially in the world of STEM. So one of the things you do with African women in STEM is that you help African women in STEM turn their skills into influence, income, and impact. Can you just tell us how you do that?
Well, first of all, like I love what I do because on this journey of building African women in STEM, I mean, I've always known that, women are awesome, women in STEM are awesome, African women in STEM are awesome. But every day I meet someone new, I get even more excited because there's so many people doing incredible things. And it gives me so much joy to meet them. But another thing I also notice is that these people, I mean, I'm just finding out about them, and a lot of people don't even know about them. I consider myself a connector. And once I see someone, I'm already thinking of the other person that will just compliment them. So like one of the things I do is like you can't have the impact. Most of us want to have impact. That's why we do the work we do. But you have more impact when you're able to collaborate and work with other people. So in terms of your impact and your influence, community building and collaboration is one of the things I push a lot that is really core to what we do at African Women in STEM. Like our networking events are just amazing. Like I go there to fill my cup every single time because I just bring women together and magic happens. But the thing is that nobody ever leaves any of those events, be it networking or stock webinars and things like that, without an answer to what they're looking for, a person that will lead them to the next opportunity or things like that. That gives me so much joy. So bringing people together in this way, allowing them to work together in a way that combines their excellence, helps them increase their impact and change the world better, right? And the other thing too, when I talk about owning your career, when you own whatever it is you're doing, your career, your business, however it is that you're serving humanity, being confident in that allows you to actually have influence in your industry, in your company, with other people as well. you know? And the third thing about the income is, as women, I'm going to talk about myself, okay? My upbringing is help, 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 help people. And then I come here because I actually have friends that are not Africans, but, have nonprofits. And the reason why a lot of women start nonprofits is because they want to help people. I almost fell into that trap. Thanks for a mentor that told me, don't do that. You can't help people. You don't have to do it through a nonprofit. There's nothing wrong with that, but we always approach things first from a place of service. And I'm realizing now that you can serve in different ways, but you also cannot serve if you don't have the money to serve. Because even nonprofits need money. They just raise money a different way. They get it from other people, they get it from other organizations, but you cannot do good in this world without money. So all that together, you have to be able to think threefold. I want to make a difference. I want to change the world. You have to be able to have the impact be wider than what you can do by yourself. You have to be able to be bold enough and confident enough to influence the world as you see it. And you have to have the income to make your reach even wider. It's as simple as thinking about, for example, in politics. Yes, there's democracy, but the people that make the most noise and win are the people that have solid funders behind them. So that's the reason why I focus on all three things. And I think it's just a way to actually really, really change the world faster, if you kind of combine all three.
So tell me, so your community, the African Women in STEM, is that a paid membership? You know,
Yeah, yes. It's now we're moving into that. But like I said, when I started, this was a community for me. I wasn't really thinking of doing more, but now I'm focused on the full time and there's so much work to do. So we just launched our paid mentorship
okay,
recently. Yes, I'm
congratulations.
excited about that. And we also have our mentorship program that we're signing people onto because to your point, we just talked about this today. Mentorship is so key and so core. And I listen when people say things. I wanted to start as a mentorship initiative. I realized that people wanted community more. So I focused on community and building our careers. And then we have more people coming and asking for mentorship. So now we've moved to that level. So I'm excited about those things. Yeah. So right now, that's where we're going. And there's just so many incredible things happening. But, check out our website. You'll get all that information.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I know we just have a few minutes, but does anybody have a question for Adaeze, whether it's about our community and or something she said, or a burning question that you have about something you're dealing with? For Adaeze, we're going to kind of run a bit over time. My apologies.
That's okay.
Uneku, Cyril, it's good to see you, Cyril. You're kind of a regular. I'm really appreciate it when you come over. Darlene, do you have any questions? So typically this is pre-recorded and so it's going to be available to our community members who will listen to it after. Darlene, I see you are unmuted. You have a question for Adaeze.
More a comment than a question. I just wanted to say that I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was lovely meeting you, Adaeze. And I'm not going to even try your last name. I just have kudos to Winifred that she's been so diligent in learning how to say it. I've been living in the US for more than 20 years, and my manager after 15 years was still butchering my last name, and it's not nearly as complicated as yours, but we'll get there. I will probably be moving back to South Africa later this year, and I would love to be part of your community, Adaeze, and see how I can connect more women that have the same goals. I'm part of a group that's called Women in Alliances as well. It's a nonprofit membership group and it's global. So we've got a really, really strong organization. We had a summit yesterday and we work with women that's in the technology field that's specifically focusing on alliances. So I'd like to be able to connect those dots as well and see how, as a community, we can help each other and move the dial forward, even if it's a little bit at a time.
Thank
you
you.
so
That's
much.
amazing. I'm excited for that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So
So
Adaeze, can you?
give us a website for women in STEM in Africa. I'd love to participate. Said I plan to be back in Africa full time from late October. Exactly when, I don't know yet, but I'd love to be able to stay in touch and see how we can help each other.
Oh, it's very easy. AfricanWomenInSTEM.com. So
Oh, okay, fantastic.
AfricanWomenInSTEM.com. Yeah. So
Perfect.
yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much for that. And that's one of the purposes of these conversations is to open up the door, to showcase the brilliance of people's work and to give people an opportunity to connect with them. And so the conversation will definitely continue reaching out to her on her LinkedIn and continuing the conversation, whether you're continuing the conversation on confidence, imposter syndrome, looking for a mentor, or you are talking about culture and how to reconcile young cultural identity with corporate expectations and how to build an inclusive culture, either in your organization, if you're in a leadership role, or maybe in the community that you serve. These are areas that we have talked about today. But again, I want to remind you that information does not bring transformation. Our goal with these sessions is that you are transformed, that the way that you go through a mindset shift, you begin to change the way you are thinking, change the way you show up, and you kind of live out the fullest expression of yourself. And that occurs only through dialogue, through conversations, hearing what other people are doing, seeing yourself in other people, getting insight, and actually applying those insights. So thank you so much, Adaeze. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I look forward to our next conversation next month. And keep your eye out for either on my LinkedIn, on WITI website, to find out who we will be interviewing next. We really appreciate your attendance here. Thank you, Adaeze, for showing up, and all the best with
Thank
African
you.
Women in STEM. We definitely will be looking for how we can collaborate with you, WITI Africa, how we can collaborate with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Adaeze. Bye for now.
Bye.